Hello, I'm Deborah Malone, founder of The Internationalist and host of Internationalist Marketing TV. Today's guest is Mirella Vitale, Executive Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Public Affairs at the ROCKWOOL Group. Mirella, it is such a pleasure to see you again. It has been many years that we've had conversations and that you've participated in so much of what we've done at the Internationalist. It's just so terrific to see you again at a wonderful new juncture. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here and to see you again.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, I guess I should say when we first spoke, but that may take us back too far. But one of the lines I always remember that you said, particularly when you started at ROCKWOOL and started doing a lot of the marketing work, you said everything changed when we aligned around purpose. Now you have an entirely new initiative, if it's worth building, which I just find imaginative, stunning, just wonderful. But it feels like another evolution. And I may be wrong, and that's part of the conversation here, but it feels like it's from sustainability and product performance towards something that's deeply human. So what's changed in your thinking over the past 2 years to come up with such a brilliant idea and concept?
Yeah, I think part of it comes from the fact that we always sort of promote the fact that sustainability is good business. But it's also true that sustainability does make products potentially a little bit more expensive than the mainstream products. So in our case, we are a premium product. We do cost a little bit more, and we shouldn't be afraid to say that, but we should explain why it makes sense to spend a little bit more money, or why it makes sense to have a product that is maybe superior than those of the masses. Because like in our case, the acoustic properties, the fire safety properties, above all, at the end of the day, yes, you may save some upfront money, but at the end of the day, what really matters is having a resilient, strong product, not only for the environment, but actually for the community and for the people. Because we started this year with a terrible fire tragedy in Switzerland, and I think that we're very often not aware of the risks that we do have in our buildings unless something tragic happens. So we wanted to give a message that yes, maybe it takes a little bit of an extra effort, but at the end of the day, it is worth it.
I think that you're one of those unique brands that have so many audiences. I mean, it can be the homeowner and people just wanting maybe the environmental benefits of knowing that you can be warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. It can be larger buildings, whether it's schools or hospitals, where hearing properly and a sense of quiet is so important, or something as magnificent as a concert hall where acoustics are so important. I mean, what you do and the number of audiences that you serve is quite astounding. And that's why I think that this platform that you've developed is again in the age where all we do is talk about AI and robots, is so human in nature that it is wonderful. It also, in my opinion, but I want to hear it from you. It feels like you're moving from what Stonewall does to actually what it enables. And I know you've always had messages about fire safety, resilience, climate, conditions. But is this more of a shift to, again, that human consequence, or is it somehow both?
Yeah, it is definitely a shift towards the human part of the story, because people, I think, need to understand exactly as you say, the use of Stonewall and how that empowers them or enables them to lead a better life, whether it's in your personal home, whether it's in your office, or as you say, in a hospital. There are many benefits, but you have to make it really hit home. And we also are, I think, more emotional this time in the way we also present our story, because of course that's what resonates with people, but also what makes you stop and think. So both the imagery is sometimes not the typical imagery. Many of the images actually don't have any buildings at all in them, because we want to tell the story of the people in the buildings and not of the building itself. Of course, we say if it's worth building, but the reason is you build something for the people inside. Right. And we want to tell the story about the people inside, whether it's in a hospital, a school, or a home. So,
And I think the storytelling is brilliant, and I also think that some of the images, whether it's a child with a teddy bear or whatever it might be, are just wonderful, and it's also a product in some ways that's hard to talk about. Of
yeah.
course, it's insulation, and the stone wool aspect of it and the sustainability of it is such another story. But it's not as if insulation is part of one's normal conversation, but you're showing that it can be, because I think that home matters, or
Definitely. And I think, and it's because we don't talk about it and because we're not aware of how it can impact us, that sometimes also people's reaction when something happens is not what it, could be or should be. Again, it's terrible to go back to that tragedy of New Year's Eve in Switzerland, but a lot of people are blaming those young people that are enjoying just a New Year's Eve party, who didn't run out of the building as fast as they possibly could, etc. But why would they expect that the ceiling would catch fire in such a short amount of time? Why would they think that somebody's not there to take care of them, or that the building would be unsafe, etc.? You don't think that way because you expect that your surroundings protect you. So we're trying to tell a story without spreading fear, but saying, okay, we do need to be a little bit aware of our surroundings. That also helps us understand how to act in case something happens. So there, I think that also, of course, we started the campaign a little bit earlier, but I think that actually triggered me as a mother even further, because you saw the terrible scenes of, families waiting for their kids to come home from these New Year's Eve parties, and then their kids didn't come home, and that's also why we say we want everybody to go home safely, to have that opportunity to go home safely. Everybody deserves it. Everybody is worth it, and I think that also hits you quite hard when you see those images on television.
Well, and Rockwell's been quite sensitive in the way that you handle those situations, because I remember several years ago the fire in London at the large, it was an apartment building, wasn't it?
Yes,
And
right.
and that was another situation where perhaps the insulation was not, up to
Yeah.
a standard. And I know that these are very delicate issues that become challenging in responsible marketing in
Yes.
terms of how one talks about them. Well, let me ask you something that is related in some ways. You chose to relaunch really a major brand platform. I guess what we could say is during a construction slowdown, when in many cases things go silent. What does that say about marketing's role at Rockwell today?
Yeah, but we believe that when the markets slow down, you actually have an opportunity to cut through the noise. Luckily, I have an executive team and a board that really believe in that marketing is not the first cost that needs to be cut. It's actually where you need to lean in a little bit further, and say that there's still a job to be done. We understand that there's crisis, people are uncertain about how and where to spend, but also to show that an investment in your property, in your home, in your schools, is an investment that is worthwhile making. I think the other part of the story that we try to tell is also that everybody lives in a building or goes to school, works in an office, regardless of where they're located, whether you're in the US, whether you're in Europe, uh, India, etc. It's a common trait that we all have. And it also means that when you're creating jobs in this industry, you're creating jobs equally everywhere. So that's an opportunity that shouldn't be avoided. I mean, so even though that there is a crisis, there is a slowdown, if you are going to look for ways to put money back into society, what better way to do it than in an industry that creates many, many local jobs, regardless of where you live, north, south, east, west. So
Oh, that's a great point. And I also think you mentioned that you had a very supportive board that enables you to go ahead with some of these marketing initiatives, but you also have a new CEO or a relatively new CEO. And I'm sure that in addition to this new platform, there's a lot of other changes underway. So how for so many of our listeners, how does marketing actually help create that continuity and that confidence when there are these shifts?
Yeah, but I think first of all, the role of the marketer has been changing more and more over the years, and actually I also have responsibility for commercial excellence, and that's because the marketing funnel is so much longer now than it used to be, like marketing and then a very long sales funnel, because there was a whole process where the salesperson handheld the customer. Now it's marketing through digital online channels, through communication, that is carrying the customer further down the funnel until you get to the sales transaction. But you as a marketeer, you need to create those opportunities. You need to create those leads so that you're giving the sales organization something very tangible to work with, and not just a brochure. And I think that's that transition has been done in ROCKWOOL. We are very, very close to the sales organization. As I said, actually at a group level, it is me managing that process. But with our businesses, we are generating those opportunities and those leads and opening up the door to even more customers for them to speak to, and then, take the transaction across the finishing line. So that's where you show the value. You show that you're bringing in business, because that's what it's about at the end of the day.
Without a doubt, and you've always been good at that. You've had this uncanny ability to mix really good storytelling from I saw that with your 80th anniversary and so on, with the extraordinary stories that you told, and mixing that with tangibles. That's why I found it very interesting that you had the confidence to build something that's really based more on peace of mind or worth protecting. Not that you always haven't thought about worth protecting,
Yeah.
but that more human element. I just find it terrific. What was the inspiration?
But I think inspiration probably is that we look at what others do and we say, okay, we don't have to do it the same way. We can be a little bit different and tell a little bit of a different story. We're not very typical for the construction industry in the way we communicate and the way we do our campaigns. But we wanted something that anybody could read and speak to and understand. So we didn't want to go technical and only on product properties. But we wanted to be attractive to everybody. As you say, we have a very, very large stakeholder group, because whether you're going into a DIY store, or you're renovating a new home, or whether you're a big contractor building a tall apartment block, you come into contact with ROCKWOOL. So we really are in contact with many, many stakeholders. And then we wanted to also speak to the politicians and say, it's also your duty to ensure that people know what is going into their buildings, and protecting and ensuring that the buildings are safe and sustainable, etc. So that was what inspired us to do something bold, a little bit bolder than we normally would do, and more emotional, as I said, than we normally would do.
Sure, you're getting wonderful feedback because it just makes you stop. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, we are actually. It's really working. It is working very well, and lots of people are reaching out to us and sort of congratulating us on being that little bit bolder and a little bit sharper. And there's still more to come with the next rounds. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I recall in so many of our past conversations and even in at conferences, you've talked a lot and you've done a lot of work on the future of cities and how cities evolve, not only in terms of, resilience and the fire issues that we've talked about, but climate adaptation and human well-being. What else is going on in that element, or does that take shape through the humanity that you're portraying?
Yeah, but I think so. It changes often because priorities change, but no matter how we look at things, we see that we always play a role. Right now, when you're sitting in Europe like I am, obviously the energy prices are a big, big cause of concern. People's energy bills are skyrocketing. You even have some countries where ministers are going out and saying, drive your cars less if you have, diesel or petrol cars, because it is getting more expensive. We don't have a solution. Flights getting cancelled because the airlines are saying the cost of the of energy is simply too high for them to lift the plane in the sky. And with our story, we don't have to make it up. The reality is that if you use our product, you are consuming less energy, so that that energy is freed up and can be used for industry, for airplanes, for trains, so it's putting energy at better use. Because you cannot ramp up supply fast enough. Every time there's an energy crisis, you can't tomorrow switch and go out and build wind farms and solar parks and new electrical plants, but you actually can renovate a home relatively fast. You can insulate a building relatively fast. The technology is there, the knowledge is there, and then the energy you have, put it to good use rather than waste it through leaky buildings. So it's a story that just comes easily. I don't have to make it up, because the product is inherently what it is.
Magic is also in showing it in such a way
Yeah.
that you get people's attention, and not only do you get their attention, but they understand something on a deeper level about the brand, whether they're familiar with it or they're not. And I think that's all the tricky stuff, because how do you keep people sold, and how do you bring in the new, and to appeal to both is hard.
Yeah. And I think also what we do as a company behind the brand, when so many companies are pulling back on their sustainability goals, we stay the course and say, we're going to stick through it. We had a plan before the crisis, so we just stay on that plan, because we had the plan. And so we've got to keep going and working towards it, and hope that things are going to change going forward. So I think also that trust and transparency, also the fact that we're a pure player. We're a pure player with Stonewall. So we're not saying, if you have this budget, use this product. If you have this budget, then you use this product. We're saying we want to make our product affordable, reachable to everybody. It comes at a little bit of a premium, but that premium gives you so much more.
And over time, and the durability over time, and the
Exactly.
fact that at the even as it's toward the end of its life cycle, it's fully sustainable. It
Yeah,
can be returned back to its original form as stone, as stone, right?
exactly. Endlessly. So
Endlessly.
that
Oh,
cycle can happen over and over again. Yeah.
and I don't think that there's too many products where that actually happens. Well, what would you say on a final note to marketers who might not have your confidence and your experience in terms of going bold, staying the course, or even convincing their management that marketing matters even in downturns? What's your advice?
Yeah, my advice is that you have to stay very close to the organization, understand the strategy and the strategic goals of the business and the company, talk to the sales organization and understand what they need, and then provide them a service that really gives them very tangible results and things to work with. I think the closer you are to the strategic center of the business, then the better you can implement your creative ideas and bring them to be a real essential part of the company. So
Well, you make it sound easy, but I know that also takes a bit of magic. And it's the magic and the practical that come together. And you've done that so brilliantly in this campaign. It's almost as if I'm watching decades of your work, even before ROCKWOOL, to hear just coming to this wonderful place. So it's a joy to talk to you. And I'm even more excited that there's more to come, so we
there's
can
more to
continue.
come. Yes, thank you. But it is, we're all, I mean, it's been a great team effort. We've worked very hard on it to find sort of the right tone, but we are very proud of where we've landed. Yeah.
As well you should be. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I know we'll be hearing more from you shortly.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. The Internationalist focuses on the continual reinvention of marketing by highlighting inspirational marketers around the world and their ideas as they move the industry forward. Internationalist Marketing TV shares these perspectives through interviews and personal stories. Thanks so much for watching. If you find this kind of content helpful, please click like or subscribe. Again, thanks so much.